To the war in the Middle East now, Slovenia has officially become the latest European country to formally recognize Palestine as a state. It comes as the country's parliament approved the move on Tuesday, with majority voting to back the decision. Slovenia now joins Spain, Ireland, and Norway, which formally recognized Palestine in May, stressing the need for peace in the Middle East. The growing momentum in Europe is likely to bolster the global Palestinian cause, but could further strain relations with Israel. Much of the world already recognizes Palestinian statehood. More than 140 out of 193 member states of the United Nations have made their recognition official. It does appear a French member of parliament who was thrown out for waving the Palestinian flag during an assembly session last week has motivated even more similar action in many lawmakers. The lawmakers all coordinated their clothing to show the colors of the Palestinian flag at the French assembly session in Paris. Each of the French left-wing representatives wore a color of the Palestinian flag, and by doing so, they formed the flag collectively in defiance of the decision of the French National Assembly, or the lower chamber of parliament, prohibiting the raising of the Palestinian flag inside the assembly building. Last week, left-wing MP Sebastian Delogu was suspended for 15 days for waving the Palestinian flag in the National Assembly, causing the session to be suspended for about an hour. Staying with lawmakers, but this time in the United States, Republican-led House of Representatives have passed legislation that would impose sanctions on the International Criminal Court over its prosecutors' decision to seek arrest warrants for Israeli officials related to the war in Gaza. The vote was 247 to 155, with 42 Democrats joining Republicans in backing the measure. There were no Republican nay votes, although 2 voted present. The measure is expected to become law, but reflects continuing support for Israel in Congress amid international criticism over the Middle East country's campaign in the Gaza Strip.
Gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, frankly, I think this is a bad bill. The idea that the ICC is some evil institution is totally contrary to fact. The International Criminal Court is an important institution, and it is not in America's moral or strategic interest to attack the court for doing its job. Should this bill pass, it would completely isolate us internationally, including and especially from our closest allies. It would deepen accusations of hypocrisy that have already caused a mind-boggling level of damage to the reputation of the United States, our diplomacy, and the entire range of our soft power capabilities. And I'm just completely astounded by how little my Republican colleagues seem to even care about the massive ramifications of this bill.
Say that out loud. That is what is happening by the International Criminal Court. Neither Israel nor the United States is a party to this organization. And yet this entity, the International Criminal Court, is trying to issue a warrant against the Prime Minister of Israel. There's been long-standing bipartisan concerns about the ICC's undermining of the United States sovereignty. Since the founding in 2002, every U.S. administration, both parties, has refused to join the court, fearing its politicization and misuse. On April 2nd, 2021, Secretary of State Attorney General Secretary of State Anthony Blinken said, "We maintain our long-standing objection to the court's efforts to assert jurisdiction over personnel of non-states parties such as the United States and Israel." NSC spokesperson John Kirby said on April 30th, quote, "We don't believe the ICC has any jurisdiction here." Both the Biden and Trump administrations and over 330 members of Congress from both parties have rejected ICC investigation of the United States and Israel in the past. Last night in the Rules Committee, talking about the Democratic witness, do you believe the ICC should be able to target American servicemen? The answer was no. The fact here is, if you allow this to happen, you are opening the door. We need to make it crystal clear to our men and women in uniform that we will not tolerate the ICC going after them or our allies for simply performing their job.
In another development, Human Rights Chief Volker Turk has renewed calls for an end to the sharp rise in deadly violence in the occupied West Bank since October 7th. Turk's spokesperson Jeremy Lawrence said Turk has urged accountability for the killing of over 500 Palestinians by Israeli security forces and settlers. He also indicated that the prevalence of Palestinians who died after being shot in the upper body parts, along with the pattern of the denial of medical assistance to those injured, suggests intent to kill in violation to the right of life, rather than a graduated application of force and an attempt to de-escalate tense situations.
The UN Human Rights Chief Volker Turk is today renewing calls for an end to the sharp rise in deadly violence in the occupied West Bank since the 7th of October. He urges accountability for the killing of over 500 Palestinians by Israeli security forces and settlers. The Israeli security forces have often used lethal force as a first resort against Palestinian protesters, throwing stones, incendiary bottles and firecrackers at armoured vehicles, in cases where those shot clearly did not represent an imminent threat to life. Among the 505 Palestinians killed so far are 2 boys shot at the weekend at a distance of about 70 metres while running away after throwing stones and/or Molotov cocktails towards a military post outside a settlement near Aqaba Jabbar. Since the 7th of October, 24 Israelis, of whom 8 were ISF members, have also been killed in the West Bank and Israel in clashes or during alleged attacks by Palestinians from the West Bank. Any allegation of unlawful killings must be thoroughly and independently investigated and those responsible held to account. As if the tragic events in Israel and then Gaza over the past 8 months are not enough, the people of the occupied West Bank are being subjected to day after day of unprecedented bloodshed.